we're going to be going over checks and balances in the United States government. So what are checks and balances? Our government has three branches, the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. Each part of the government is connected to the other. Each has its own responsibilities and powers. A system of checks and balances prevents one branch from getting too much power. A couple examples of checks and balances. When Congress passes a bill, it goes to the president, or the executive branch. Congress is, again, part of the legislative branch. The president reviews it. If he likes it, he signs it and it becomes law. If the president does not like it, he can veto it, or she. When the president decides to veto a bill, the Congress can vote on it again. If two-thirds of the Congress, both houses, votes in favor of the bill, they override the veto. The Supreme Court can check both the president and Congress by declaring a law unconstitutional. Again, the Supreme Court is the judicial branch. So what are separations of powers? This has to do a lot with checks and balances. Each of the three branches would have defined powers to check the powers of the other branches. This idea was called separation of powers. This means, for example, that no branch has absolute control over the law and the creation of law. So what is the difference between checks and balances and separation of powers? Checks and balances is a system where each branch of government exercises some control on the other branches. Separation of powers is the division of power among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. There's a visual that may be helpful. So federalism. Federalism is very important with checks and balances. Now, the text is difficult to read, but power in the government is shared between the state and national or federal government. There are certain things that only the national government can handle, and other things are the responsibility of the individual states. Additionally, there are duties they both share, such as taxation. So what is federalism? In order to preserve the rights of the states and keep America a united nation, a system of federalism was used. Federalism shares government power between national state governments. So there is a Venn diagram showing delegated and reserved powers. Delegated is also called expressed powers. So what are the three levels of government? Not the three branches, the three levels. The three levels of government are the federal, which is like the government of the entire country. There's the state, which includes like the governor, and the local, which is like your mayor for the executive branches. So state and local have three branches, just like the federal government. It does not change what level of government you're on. You'll always have three branches in a government in the United States. So, were you listening? Answer these questions on your own. So, what are checks and balances? Give one example of how checks and balances work. What are separation of powers? What is the difference between checks and balances and separation of powers? Two more questions. What is federalism and what are the three levels of government? That is all I have for you.